What's up with y'all boys? Welcome to another video. I know it's been a minute before I made a video. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I ain't gonna lie. It's a good 6:45 a.m. in the morning. You feel me? I'm trying to get a couple videos done before I go out, get to the day. You feel me? But today, this video was posted by Raptor. It was 17 hours ago. Yeah. These are the final hours of Tay Keith. I ain't gonna lie. Personally, I didn't even know Tay Keith died. I didn't even know that. I mean, 17. I don't know. I looked on Twitter before. I don't know. What? Yeah. He lived back the hardest ad lib in the world, though. Anyways, let's get to the video. And if y'all having a nice day in the morning, whoever it is y'all, hope y'all having a nice time. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
Tay Keith is gone, and the final hours before his death are raising questions that hip-hop still doesn't have answers to. For a man whose drum patterns you've heard blasting out of car speakers, whose tag has opened some of the biggest records in modern hip-hop, the idea that his story could end this suddenly almost feels impossible to process. Right now, across the culture, people are asking the same question. What actually happened in the hours before the world found out Tay Keith was gone? There's a sequence of events here, a timeline that starts long before anyone realized anything was wrong, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand it piece by piece. Yo, what's good, fam? We about to dive deep into the life, the legacy, and the final days of one of the most important producers hip-hop has seen in the last decade, so stick around because this story is heavier than a lot of y'all realize. Now, before we get into this, let me keep it 100 with you. Since the news broke, the internet has been flooded with theories, with timelines, with people claiming they know exactly what happened behind closed doors. But yo, we about to separate the facts from the fiction, the real reporting from the rumors, because there is a real story here. A story about a kid from Memphis who built an empire out of nothing. And there's also a wave of speculation that's been spreading online. Speculation we're going to address directly, but we're going to label it for exactly what it is the whole way through. Thursday, June 18th. That's the date that changed everything. A producer whose sound has soundtracked some of the biggest hits of the last decade was found inside his own apartment in Nashville, and within hours, his name was trending everywhere for the worst possible reason. Now, hold up before y'all start assuming you already know the full story, because right now, even the people closest to this investigation don't have all the answers. The official cause hasn't been confirmed, but here's where it gets real spicy, because the lead up to that moment, the days before, the silence that worried the people closest to him, that's where this story actually starts to take shape. So check it. To understand why this is hitting the culture so hard, you have to go back to where it all started, because Tay Keith's story was never handed to him. It was built brick by brick out of a part of Memphis that doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves. He was born Britavious Keith Chambers, and from the jump, life wasn't soft on him. He's talked openly in interviews later in his career about growing up in Section 8 housing raised primarily by a single mother, about the kind of hardship that doesn't show up in a highlight reel, food stamps, government assistance, stretches where stability itself.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside.
Alright, now we back. I had to go fix that.
Family was fighting for. He was born in South Memphis, and his family moved around the city over the years, spending time in East Memphis and later in Orange Mound, one of the oldest historically black neighborhoods in the country, with deep roots in Memphis music culture. Now in the streets of Memphis, music has always been its own language. Long before Tay Keith was producing chart-topping records, the city had already given the world 3-6 Mafia, 8 Ball and MJG, that raw, bass-heavy, hypnotic sound that doesn't exist anywhere else. That sound got into his bones early. He wasn't just listening, he was absorbing a tradition that belonged to his city specifically. By the time he was around 14, he wasn't just listening anymore, he was creating. He started making beats as a young teenager on whatever software he could get his hands on, uploading tracks to YouTube and to hip-hop sites like DatPiff, throwing his work out into the world with no guarantee anyone would ever hear it. That tells you something about who he was before any of the fame arrived. He wasn't chasing a trend. He was a kid from Memphis, shaped by struggle, building something that was entirely his own. And here's the real kicker. While a lot of young producers from rough circumstances feel pressure to drop everything for music, Tay Keith chose both. He enrolled at Middle Tennessee State University and stuck with it, even as his career started taking off around him. He's been quoted saying there wouldn't have been any point going to college if he didn't intend to finish it, that he could have just thrown everything into music full time, but he didn't want to take that shortcut. He graduated from MTSU in December 2018 with degrees in integrated studies and media management. Let that sink in for a minute, because that same year, while he was still finishing college, his name was already exploding across hip-hop. That breakout didn't happen by accident. It happened through a partnership with a fellow Memphis native, Block Boy JB. The two of them linked up locally, and what they built together became one of the most important regional to national success stories in modern rap. Their record, Look Alive, became a phenomenon, the kind of song that defines a sound, a city, a whole moment in time, and it caught the attention of one of the biggest artists on the planet. Drake heard what was happening in Memphis and got pulled directly into Tay Keith's orbit. From there, things moved fast. His tag, that producer drop that became almost as recognizable as some artists' actual voices, started showing up on records from the biggest names in the industry. He co-produced Drake's Non-Stop. He worked on Travis Scott's Sicko Mode, a song that doesn't just chart, it reshapes what a hit record is even allowed to sound like. That collaboration earned him a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Song. He was 23 years old. Real talk, 23, Grammy nominated, off a beat that became one of the most influential rap productions of its era. And he didn't stop building from there. His catalog kept expanding into a list most producers spend an entire career chasing. He worked with Eminem on Not Alike. He worked with Cardi B. He worked with Lil Baby. He worked with Sexy Red, helping shape some of her biggest breakout records. He even landed a production credit on Beyoncé's live album Homecoming, contributing to the bonus track Before I Let Go. That's a span of artists crossing generations, regions, and entire subgenres of hip-hop, all running through one producer from Memphis who started out posting beats online as a teenager. In 2024, that body of work got formally recognized when he was named Producer of the Year at the BMI Awards. By that point, Forbes had already profiled him, tracing his rise from Section 8 housing to one of the most in-demand hitmakers in the country. And through all of it, he kept talking about where he came from, about wanting to give back to Memphis, about partnering with local programs to help kids in the same communities he was raised in, about never hesitating to mentor young producers who reached out to him. That's the foundation. Now let's get into the timeline that everybody's been trying to piece together, because this is where it gets real. Publicly, leading up to those final days, Tay Keith did not look like a man fading out of the industry. He looked like a man at the height of his recognition. He'd recently been honored as a top producer in the business. He was still working with major artists, still appearing on new releases, still carrying that same momentum that had defined his career for years. From the outside, this looked like a story still being written, not one anywhere close to its final chapter. That's part of why this hit people the way it did. There wasn't an obvious public decline that anybody could point back to and say they saw coming. But as we get closer to the days that would become his final ones, the public record gets a lot thinner, and for good reason. This is somebody's private life, and most of what happens behind closed doors simply isn't something the public has access to. What's been reported is that at some point, people close to him, collaborators, friends, people in his circle, reportedly noticed a gap, a silence where there usually wasn't one. And one detail that's come out, through a tribute from Block Boy JB himself, hits different once you sit with it. JB shared screenshots showing a history of daily phone calls between the two of them, a pattern of communication that had apparently been consistent for a long time. Let that sink in for a minute, because that detail tells you something important. These weren't two people who drifted apart after their breakout hit faded off the charts. They were still talking near daily, years after Look Alive put both of their names on the map. So when a pattern like that breaks, even a short stretch of silence registers different to the people inside it than it does to everybody watching from the outside. This is where concern reportedly started building among the people closest to him, where an unusual gap in contact began to feel like something worth paying attention to. We don't have a fully detailed public account of exactly who reached out or exactly when or what specifically triggered what came next. But here's what we do know for certain. That concern led to a welfare check. For anybody who doesn't know what that means, a welfare check is typically requested when somebody hasn't been heard from in a way that breaks their normal pattern, and somebody who knows them, family, friends, sometimes people in the building, asks authorities to go physically check that the person is okay. That's the bridge between the quiet, private concern building behind the scenes and what became public a short time later. Officers performing that welfare check found Tay Keith legally Bratavious Chambers inside his apartment on Martin Street in Nashville.
This nigga got a long ass name. Hold on, go back.
And what became public a short time later. Officers performing that welfare check found Tay Keith legally Bratavious Chambers inside his apartment on Martin Street in Nashville on Thursday afternoon, June 18th. He was 29 years old. The official police statement, the one that's been quoted across nearly every outlet covering this story, is short and notably restrained. It says, "No foul play is suspected in his death." It also says, "His death is unclassified, pending the results of an autopsy." Now, let me break that down for y'all because those two lines are doing all the work here. No foul play suspected means that based on what officers observed at the scene, nothing is pointing toward this being the result of violence or a crime committed by somebody else. An unclassified pending autopsy means there is currently no official medically confirmed cause of death. Not from any specific substance, not from any specific medical condition, nothing locked in. Real talk, the honest answer right now to what actually happened is that we don't fully know yet. Anybody telling you different at this stage isn't reporting a fact, they're guessing. And that brings us to the part of the story that's been spreading the fastest and is also the most important to handle carefully, the online reaction. Within hours of the news breaking, social media did what it always does after a sudden, high-profile death with no announced cause. People started searching for an explanation immediately because uncertainty is uncomfortable, and a story without an ending feels unfinished in a way that makes people want to fill in the blanks themselves. Across comment sections, across forums, across reaction videos, you've probably already seen the same theories circulating. Speculation about substance use, speculation about a possible overdose, speculation tying his death to industry pressure, to mental health struggles, to whatever explanation feels like it brings the story closure. Now, the real kicker, none of that has been confirmed by police, by the medical examiner, or by his family. None of it. It's circulating because people want an answer, not because anybody with actual access to the autopsy results has confirmed anything. This is rumor. This is public conversation, not public record. And the difference between those two things matters a lot when we're talking about a real person, with a real mother, real friends, a real community in Memphis that's grieving him right now, not consuming a plot twist. For those who haven't noticed this pattern before, this is actually one of the more uncomfortable truths about how news moves today. The second a public figure dies suddenly and a cause isn't immediately announced, a vacuum opens up and the internet rushes to fill it almost instantly. It happens nearly every time. A celebrity passes, the official statement says cause of death is pending, and within hours there's already threads, already theories, already people speaking with total confidence about things nobody outside a medical examiner's office could actually know yet. Sometimes those theories end up close to accurate once results come out. A lot of the time, they don't. The problem is, once a rumor starts moving, it travels faster than any correction ever does, and by the time real information shows up, if it's even released publicly at all, the speculative version has already shaped how a huge number of people remember the story. So if you've seen people online stating outright that they know Tay Keith died of an overdose, or claiming they know exactly what substance was involved, understand that, as of this video, that has not been confirmed by law enforcement. It's a story people are telling because the real one hasn't been finished yet. What has been confirmed, clearly and publicly, is the reaction from the people who actually knew him. Blockboy JB, his closest collaborator, the man whose career is permanently tied to Tay Keith's through Look Alive and everything that came after it, posted his grief openly, a broken heart, a photo of the two of them together and those screenshots of their daily calls, a small private detail turned into a public tribute, a way of saying this wasn't just a business partner, this was someone he talked to constantly, someone who was a real part of his life. That kind of tribute hits different than a generic statement because it's specific. It's not rest in peace, great producer. It's evidence of an actual ongoing friendship that existed in the background the entire time, even while the world was mostly focused on the records they made together instead of the relationship behind them. Beyond that immediate circle, the reaction across the music industry has been the kind of widespread shock that tells you exactly how far Tay Keith's influence actually reached. This isn't a producer who was only known inside Memphis, or only among hardcore hip-hop heads who track production credits closely. His tag has played behind some of the most streamed songs of the last decade, the kind of sound that people would instantly recognize the second it dropped, even if they couldn't tell you his name. When a producer's reach is that wide, his death doesn't just affect one corner of the culture, it ripples through almost all of it at once. Drake worked with him, Travis Scott worked with him, Eminem worked with him, Cardi B worked with him, Beyonce's team brought him in, Lil Baby worked with him, Sexy Y Red worked with him. That is not a normal range of collaborators for any one producer to build relationships with, and that's part of why this shock has traveled so far, so fast. Now let's talk about something bigger than just this one story, because there's a pattern here that keeps repeating in this industry. The public assumes that once somebody reaches a certain level of success, a certain level of wealth, a certain level of recognition, their struggles are essentially over. We see the Grammy nomination, the records with Beyonce and Drake and Travis Scott, the BMI Producer of the Year award, and our instinct is to assume that a person who achieved all of that must be living a life that's settled, secure, happy. But success was never built to protect anybody from pain. It doesn't insulate anybody from isolation. It doesn't insulate anybody from...
The one thing that niggas can remember is that rappers be struggling. Don't let none of these niggas fool you. You can let some of them fool you with the money, but don't let that shit fool you. Most of these niggas be really broke, like really broke. Yeah, I'm gonna show you, but most of these niggas be really broke.
Burnout from the exhausting pace of an industry that demands constant output, constant relevance, constant presence. If anything, the pressure that comes with being as in demand as Tay Keith was can create its own kind of weight, a weight that's invisible from the outside precisely because everything about the public-facing version of someone's life looks like it's going right. Think about what it actually takes to build the kind of catalog he built. It's not just talent, though. He clearly had an extraordinary amount of it. It's relentless work. It's being available whenever artists need you, on their schedule, often under deadline pressure the public never sees. It's carrying a reputation as one of the most in-demand producers in the genre, which means every new beat comes with an unspoken expectation attached to it, a pressure to match or top what came before. It's navigating an industry built on people constantly wanting access to you while somehow still trying to hold on to a private life, a sense of self that exists outside of being Tay Keith, the hitmaker. None of that shows up in a Grammy nomination. None of it shows up in a chart position. And that's exactly the problem with how audiences tend to process stories like this one. We see the headline, we see the accolades, and we assume that tells us everything about a person's internal reality. It almost never does. This is also a moment to remember where Tay Keith actually came from, because it adds another layer to everything we just walked through. He didn't enter the industry from a place of comfort. He entered it from Section 8 housing, from a household relying on food stamps and government assistance, from a single mother holding things together under real financial strain. That kind of early life experience doesn't just disappear the moment success arrives. People carry the imprint of where they came from with them, even as their circumstances change around them. Sometimes that shows up as motivation, which is clearly what it did for him. He talked openly about wanting to give back to Memphis, about working with programs to help kids in the same communities he grew up in, about never hesitating to mentor young producers reaching out for guidance. That's a beautiful instinct, and it speaks to who he was as a person. But it's also worth recognizing that people who've lived through real hardships sometimes carry a quiet pressure that never fully leaves. A sense of needing to keep proving that the success is real, that it's earned, that it won't get taken away. We don't know what was happening internally for Tay Keith in his final days, and we're not going to pretend we do. But it's worth sitting with the broader truth that fame and money have never been a guarantee of peace. At the end of the day, this isn't just about one producer's final days or one police statement or one wave of online speculation. It's about how easily we as an audience mistake recognition for fulfillment, mistake a catalog of hits for a complete picture of somebody's well-being. So many people watching this right now have made that same assumption at some point, that if somebody has enough money, enough awards, enough proof that they made it, their struggles must be behind them. We do this with athletes, we do this with actors, we do this with musicians and producers constantly. We look at someone's bank account, their collaborator list, their awards shelf, and we treat that as the whole story. It almost never is. Influence, wealth, and recognition are real achievements, and they're not nothing, but they were never designed to be a substitute for genuine connection, for rest, for the kind of support that has nothing to do with industry status. The real question now is what this moment means for the culture going forward, and whether stories like this one actually change how people talk about pressure and isolation in this industry, or whether the conversation fades the next time a new headline takes over the timeline. Tay Keith built something genuinely remarkable in his time in this business. From a teenager uploading beats to Dat Piff, to a Memphis-bred producer reshaping the sound of mainstream hip-hop, to a Grammy nominee working alongside some of the biggest names in music, to a BMI Producer of the Year, That arc represents an extraordinary amount of talent, discipline, and resilience. It's a story that deserves to be remembered in full, not reduced to a single headline about how it ended. So as we close this out, here's what we actually know, separated clearly from what we don't. We know Tay Keith, born Bratavius Chambers, was found inside his Nashville apartment on Thursday, June 18th by police performing a welfare check after people in his life reportedly hadn't been able to reach him. We know police have said no foul play is suspected. We know his death remains officially unclassified, pending autopsy results, meaning there is currently no confirmed cause. We know his closest collaborator, Blockboy JB, shared a deeply personal tribute reflecting years of consistent, close communication between them. And we know that online, speculation has spread fast about possible substance use, about a possible overdose, about explanations that feel like they bring closure to an open question. None of that has been confirmed by anybody with the authority to confirm it. It's conversation, not confirmation, and until an official cause comes out, if it ever gets released publicly at all, the responsible move is to hold space for the uncertainty instead of filling it with somebody else's guess dressed up as fact. What's not uncertain is the impact this man had. The next time Sicko Mode comes on, or Nonstop, or Look Alive, or Before I Let Go, there's a tag at the start of so many of those tracks that an entire generation of hip-hop fans recognizes instantly. That tag belonged to a kid from South Memphis who grew up with very little, who taught himself how to build beats, who finished his college degree even as his music career was exploding around him, who went on to work with some of the most important artists in the world, and who never stopped talking about giving back to the city that raised him. What are your thoughts on everything we just laid out and on what this means for the culture moving forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
No, I definitely drop your comments. Or drop your thoughts. But nah, I don't. I don't know. It's. I don't like. I don't know what to say, cause it's like it's hard to think about it because it's unclassified. You can't go off saying it's an OD. You can say it's an OD. Okay, cool. But I feel like examiners know when it's an OD, so I feel like they could confirm when it's an OD. And I feel like an overdose is like usually signs of overdose, unless there's one with no signs of overdose. Like I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be something completely different if people were saying it's an overdose. Uh, but yeah, rest in peace to Tay Keith though for sure. Yeah. Y'all like and subscribe though. Peace.